Welcome to the vast and dangerous 10th world. As a new player, over the next 100 days I will try to survive, progress, and conquer the land of the Forsaken. But what actually are the Forsaken? The mythical beasts sent here by Odin himself, waiting to be defeated by a worthy Viking warrior. Each one of them requires preparation, strategy, and patience. And quite a bit of gear. My main objective of this playthrough is to slay several of them and prove myself worthy of Valhalla in the eyes of the gods. Welcome to Valheim. We start off in the Viking creator. I picked some basic hairstyle, long beard, and cranked up that blonde meter as far as I could. And after finishing my Viking, Nordic Uber picked me up and dropped me in the ancient rocks. Here I met Uber's younger sibling that tried teaching me the basics of the game. And this is probably the last time you'll see him, since I took it as a point of honor to cut him out of the rest of the video whenever he appeared, for some reason. Then I walked up to some ancient glowing tablet, and it marked the location of the first boss on my map. That was surprisingly quick and painless, and I don't even have any pants yet. Then I walked around and gathered some resources, handily scattered everywhere around me. And when I ducked over my desk to grab a soda, some random creature took it as an opportunity and slapped my pantless bottom. Wow, that's a much quicker than usual. So I punched him until he exploded. From the resources I gathered, I made myself a nice stone axe. Then, unsurprisingly, given the genre of the game, I cut down my first tree. And wow, the logs are like fully physics based. Nice. But soon after, I got assaulted yet again, but this time by a boar. And since I had an average and very normal sized health bar, I decided to make a run for it without putting much of a fight. This is when I realized that stamina here is a hell of a thing to manage, and in my panic mode, I jumped into water, without any stamina and barely any health. So my first death in Valheim wasn't to an epic boss fight, it was drowning in water the depth of an average jacuzzi. So it might take a while for me to get into Valhalla now that I think about it. I spawned back and grabbed my things, the boars were waiting for me of course, and since I had nothing to lose anyway, I decided to fight back. And oh wow, okay, I deal much more damage than I thought, should have manned up sooner. This way I got myself some meat and boar leather. I continued exploring, looking for a place to call home. Abandoned huts seemed a bit too easy, and I wanted to build my own thing rather than just repurposing some old stinky ruins. But I did find some bees in one of those places, so mentally noted. And right next to that bee house, I found a place as good as any to build on, right next to a lake no less. Seems good enough to me. So I crafted a wooden hammer, which is necessary to activate the building mode, and created my first campfire, which by the way is much more important than I initially thought. And right next to it, a workbench. But apparently for me to use it, it needs to be under a roof for some reason. So I gathered some wood from the area, all while fending off some of the more curious dwarfy creatures. And after a bit I started building my wooden house. I can only build within the limited area around the workbench, so that's something to keep in mind. And after it felt inside-y enough, I moved the workbench there. So now I just had to finish up the roof for it to work. And by the way, the building system is really satisfying to work with. Stuff snaps to other stuff, you can rotate, pick and choose parts, really nice. But now, under the roof, I can actually use the workbench itself. And apparently you can just repair tools for free, without using any resources, and that's a really nice quality of life thing. The first thing I crafted is a flint axe, a slightly superior version of a stone axe. Although now that I think about it, isn't flint kind of a stone? Never mind. Since I built my house next to a lake, flint is practically everywhere here, and it's still a nice little upgrade over the stone axe. And the most basic version of a shelter is done. Next morning I found a tree that even my brand new axe couldn't cut. I guess there is even a tree cutting progression in Valheim, so I settled for the regular ones for now. And kept on improving and expanding my base. No, I had no plan, I was absolutely freestyling my amazing building technique. Oh, and I killed a greyling with a falling tree, so that's a thing, huh? But after a while I made my first wooden bed and put it cozily inside. Then some finishing touches on the overall structure of the base, and my little house was getting houseier and houseier by the day. Now it was even fully enclosed, meaning that security is less of an issue now. Then I put a cooking station over fire and cooked the boars from earlier. Eating the meat in combination with strawberries actually improved my max health a lot. Food cooking and combining ingredients for stamina and health boosts is a crucial mechanic in Valheim. But after being here for some time now, I got tired of running everywhere completely butt-ass naked, so my next objective is making some pants. And it just so happens that boars, which are extremely common here, are made out of pants material. And best part, if you run up to them real fast before they spot you, they die in one shot. It's some sort of a sneak mechanic or something, minus the sneaking. But as I was looking for more pant spray, I spotted a completely new summoning altar of the first in-game boss, Eikthyr. It's not the one that I have marked on my map, and it's quite a bit closer. And when I walked up there, I found a stele inscribed with the words, "Hunt his kin." So basically I have to bring him trophies from hunting deer. I came back home and turned the boars into my personal legwear, and now officially I am not as badass naked as I used to be. Later that day I crafted a hoe, and to my amazement it's actually not for farming, but rather flattening the terrain. Bit confusing, but I made some use of it, making my front lawn prettier. And the next morning I began finishing up the storeroom. I wanted 2 rooms in total here, 1 bedroom with crafting and 1 room for storage. And after enclosing it, I added some nice details. I really love the building system in Valheim so far, and in just about 3 days my whole first house was finished. Now all I had to do was put some chests down, so I actually have some storage now. And a bit later I realized there are bows in this game, and all I needed was some more boar leather and a bit of wood to craft the first one. So I went out for a little adventure around the island, or maybe peninsula that I settled on. And then I found this, which essentially seemed to spawn boars from time to time. Not sure how accurate my assessment is, but that's how it looks like. And after taking care of the 4-legged leather dispensers, I read some lore about, yeah, you guessed it, boars. It basically said that boars fear fire, but can be tamed, I guess. We will see about that later. So I moved on with my journey and found a whole abandoned village. Or at least it seemed to be abandoned, with the exception of a few boars and I guess skeletons. So after taking care of those, I went and looted every chest in the village. Didn't get much, but what I got will be useful, probably. So I came back home, crafted my crude bow, and immediately went and tested it out on greylings. And finally started to hunt some elusive deer, which to be fair was way more fun than I thought it would be. Okay, aim higher. Oh! One more deer. Oh, that was actually close. Wait! Did I actually hit him? I hit him! Really? Dude, that was like 70 million meters. Damn! I'm actually the best archer in Valhalla, dude. After coming home the same night, I crafted an entire stack of wooden arrows. I knew that archery was the way to go from now on, or at least until I have some better melee weapons. And a bit later I realized that I actually unlocked some new building recipes, and I also realized that there are character statistics that I can level up in game, with rather vague descriptions as to what they actually improve, but still, it's pretty good to know. And since now I needed some resources for the workbench improvements, I decided to go for an all-nighter hunting trip. Deer, boar, anything goes. And in the morning I even found a mysterious looking stone ruin, with some skeletons guarding it. I decided to lure one of them out. This one happens to be slightly stronger version of a skeleton, since the star next to its name, but nothing that cannot be cheesed with a little bit of footwork. And then it started storming, and as it turns out, greylings are just the weakest versions of Grey Dwarf mobs, which started to appear now for some reason, including a shaman, a green-eyed Grey Dwarf, that can heal its allies. So I made my very brave escape, and finally got the last boar I needed. One more boar, the last one, please. Okay. Thank you. Then I came back home and was able to finally put the Tanigrak down, which upgrades the workbench to level 2. And now I was finally able to make some actual armor. And now, not only I look very Vikingly, but I am also protected better from what's to come. And the next morning I hunted some birds for feathers, which I will use to make now unlocked flint arrows. I will need those the next day. Since I knew where Eikthyr is, I decided to try my luck already. Having one Forsaken down so soon is for sure a pretty strategic position to be in. So I cooked some stuff, making sure my health bar is as full as can be at the moment, took the deer trophies I gathered from the last night's hunting trip, and made my way to the altar. But not to the one across the lake, even though it's a bit closer. I wanted as much free space as possible, so I went to the altar that got marked on my map by the steely on the spawn. I walked up to the altar itself and used the 10 trophies I had on it. And there it is, the first boss of Valheim. Admittedly, he's not very hard to deal with, and I remember beating him pretty early when the game came out, but that's basically where my knowledge of Valheim ends. I never really played this game after that. And during the boss fight itself though, I focused on dodging his electric attacks, which are pretty telegraphed, and shooting him with every arrow I had. He doesn't deal a lot of damage, and his health bar indicates that he is basically a glorified deer, even if he is a bit annoying at times to hit. But generally I wasn't really that worried about this fight. It's very basic and requires only that you bring some arrows with you, but even that is optional. Oh, nice. Right in his head, dude. And after defeating Eikthyr, I grabbed the trophy and antlers for pickaxe crafting. Yes, pickaxe is boss wall behind defeating this guy. Then I made my way to the world spawn. This is where you put the trophies of the bosses you kill and get some rewards for it. And here we go. The first one is done. And the reward I got for bringing him there is an active ability that gives you some boost to stamina regen and stamina costs. Pretty handy if you ask me, especially when you suck at managing it like I do. And it will come in clutch several times from now, you will see. When I got home I immediately crafted the antler pickaxe, enabling me now to exploit resources like copper and tin. And a bit later I also expanded the storage area quite a bit. I will need it. The next morning I built yet another workbench improvement, making it level 3 now and unlocking even more recipes. And then I made my way in search of the Black Forest, the second biome after Meadows, where I currently reside. Progression in Valheim is very biome-centric. You craft whatever you can from Meadows and naturally progress into Black Forest stuff, and then again craft everything from resources available in Black Forest and progress further. Each one of them of course gets harder than the previous one, but I wasn't really mentally prepared for this. Oh? A troll hits hard, a troll has a lot of HP, but also a troll is very slow. So I used it to my advantage and spammed as many arrows as necessary right into his blue face, occasionally dodging his very telegraphed attacks. The active buff from Eikthyr was also very helpful to reposition myself whenever I needed to, without worrying too much about stamina. And after defeating the troll, I unlocked the new troll related recipes, so after I came back home, I crafted a nice troll shirt. A shirt made out of troll. T-shirt, if you will. Day 10 was the day of raft crafting. I chopped some wood, killed a couple of boars, and crafted my first wooden raft. Made out of wood and boars, believe it or not. I wanted to make a short Viking raid into Black Forest, but instead of running, to sail there. The storm that started almost immediately after I stepped on the raft didn't really help, but I wasn't going really far anyway, just across the lake into the nearest Black Forest biome. And right after landing, I mined some tin, which spawns mostly around the water it seems. No idea how accurate that is, but it is what it is. But tin is not the only thing I need, so I started searching for a copper deposit. I didn't really know how it looks like at the time, but after some stumbling around I did find some. Copper, okay, nice. And mined as much as I could feasibly carry back to the raft, although running back to it proved a bit difficult though. I ran right past what seems like a smelly grey dwarf stick pile that they worship or something, and they really didn't like me that much, so I found the raft and tried my best to escape on a vessel that might be just a tiny bit faster than my grandma sliding down the stairs, but ultimately it worked. I managed to get away from them, and I was already plotting my revenge because I don't forget that easily. And after finally getting home from the raid, I counted the spoils. 15 tin ore and 12 copper ore. Now I somehow need to smelt it into actual usable material. So I went out in search of crypts, which are basically like little dungeons with enemies and stuff, but there is also a pretty high chance of finding surtling cores, which are needed for the furnace and the charcoal kiln necessary for smelting ores. I didn't feel very confident about this though, never done it before, so I didn't want to risk getting killed on my first dungeon. So I decided to speedrun through, ignoring all the enemies and just pick up all the necessary items along the way, you know? And after the first crypt, I already had 3 surtling cores out of the necessary 10. Then I found another crypt, sprinted and grabbed all the items, made my escape. Then again, crypt, ran fast grabbing everything, and then again, I found a crypt, ran and well, this time I Vikingly messed up. There's only one corridor and it's filled to the brim with skeletons and whatnot. Wow, I can't really run past them without them killing me like instantly. Getting clapped by like 7 skellies at the same time doesn't sound like the good type of boning. So I decided to sit and wait for them to lose interest, and believe it or not, it actually worked. But in my infinite greed, I decided to loot the crypt anyway, knowing the bony danger. And after taking one wrong turn into a dead end, yeah, I lost everything. Every item I had on me, including all the surtling cores needed for the furnaces. Oh my god, that is so not good. But even more importantly, and probably embarrassingly, the only pickaxe I had. Because yeah, I brought it with me for some reason, I don't know. So I was basically in square one, and I don't like square one, I'd much rather be in square two right now, please. So I was determined to get my stuff back, so I cooked, literally, and made sure I have as much HP as possible. Crafted a flint axe for some basic melee attacks. I used up all my deer skin to craft a second pair of armor. A spare armor. Sparmor, okay. I was already ready and terminally determined, and most importantly willing to fight instead of running past everything. After fighting one of the skeletons outside, I realized I could roll. And in the crypt, I decided to take the skeletons one by one, or at least not all at the same time. And fighting proved to not be as difficult as I thought it would be, making my way to my items with each defeated enemy. And after a couple of minutes of fighting, I got to my tombstone. All the items were there, safe and just as 2D spritey as I remember them, including 9 surtling cores. This was a very important lesson for me. Don't take everything with you at all times, and when it comes to combat, don't act like a little puss. While trying to make my way out, I was chased by some sort of a mini-boss, a green glowing poison skeleton. And since I don't run from a fight now, I was fighting for the right to run. And after his satisfying defeat, I explored the last unexplored room of the crypt. And there it was. This is the last core. Now I have 10. The last 10th surtling core I needed for the furnaces. I came back home and built my first smelter and my first charcoal kiln. I put the ores in the smelter and wood into the kiln. Now all I had to do was wait. I mean, really, it does take a moment. But after some of the ores were smelted, I unlocked some new important recipes. But the most important one, the forge, I decided to build immediately. Now I could make what some of you Bronze Era blacksmiths who are watching might have predicted: bronze. From combining tin and copper. A thing of beauty, really. I unlocked bronze armor and tools. So now I just needed more of it. And the next couple of days was just me digging tin and copper. I also made some bronze nails, which unlocked a cart recipe. I didn't know something like that exists, but it will help immensely with expanding my carrying potential. But now it was time to at least start building some defenses around my house. So I put a couple of stake walls around. Not yet fully enclosed, but we will get there when we get there. Digging ores with the cart was much easier though, although it does not handle very well on uneven surfaces, but that's something for later. And yeah, digging in the Black Forest is never safe. Sometimes even trolls can sneak up on you, you know? But after a whole day spent mining, I actually overstayed my welcome here. Handling the cart on the forest floor, while also actively avoiding swarms of enemy mobs, was not fun. And while making my escape, the terrain completely overturned my cart and I had to flee without it, or die trying to save it. Pretty much entire morning was spent outmaneuvering enemies and looking for my ore cart. Pain. I just wanted some copper, bro. I found it. Never mind, I found it. And honestly, at that point I was not expecting anything. But I somehow managed to find it through sheer luck. I quickly repaired it and made my way back to my home. Note to self, don't go to a place called Black Forest at night. The rest of the morning was spent smelting ores and crafting some bronze stuff, including a bronze axe. Now I can cut pretty much all the trees from around here, it seems. And the new wood types could craft slightly different things. Like this ornamental dragon thing I put on my house. And the next couple of days were just spent smelting stuff still. It takes surprisingly a lot of time actually. But finally, now I was able to make the bronze armor. And it's not only very shiny, but it should last me for a while now. Next day I used some bronze to make anvils, which leveled up the forge, mined some more coppers and tins while actively avoiding the ever-present trolls from the area, even if majestic as hell, and continued my bronze production. I also cut some birches for the first time, and it seems they give the highest amount of fine wood, which will be necessary for many things later, and one thing now, specifically for carve. A huge upgrade from the raft, in every sense of that word, and it is technically my first proper Viking vessel. I need that boat to help me get 3 ancient seeds. With them I will be able to summon the Elder, the boss of the Black Forest, and the next Forsaken on my list. And the ancient seeds just so happen to drop from the Grey Dwarf Smelly Stick shrines, so my revenge on them will come finally to fruition, and very soon. So I crafted some fire arrows, since Grey Dwarfs seem to be scared of fire. I jumped on the boat and sailed away into the distance. Although admittedly, the Grey Dwarf shrine is pretty close to my house, so I probably could have just walked there, but that wouldn't be very Vikingly. I fought them on the land. I got all 3 seeds before even touching the shrine, since they also seem to drop from the big red Grey Dwarfs, the so-called brutes. And I have 3 ancient seeds. But out of spite and pure revenge, I demolished their modern art display anyway. I climbed back to my boat and sailed back home. This night is going to be the last night before my attempt to fight the Elder, and the last night before a complete disaster. The Elder's summoning shrine is pretty far north, so I won't walk there on foot. I decided to make a proper Viking raid yet again, but this time in my trusty carve, and I sailed straight through the heart of the huge lake, which I guess is an ocean biome. Okay. I sailed through calm waters, and I sailed through narrow inland rivers. It was in a way peaceful, like a quiet before a storm. I noticed a place good enough to touch land, and pretty close to the Elder's summoning spot, or at least that's how it looked like to me at the time. The place itself wasn't part of the surrounding Black Forest though, it was actually a patch of the swamp biome, which is significantly more dangerous. And believe me, if I knew what I'm getting myself into, I probably would have docked further, straight in the Black Forest. I decided to repurpose the old watchtower right next to the shore, and immediately spotted some problems. Draugs. This place was actually crawling with the undead, and since it was night and I didn't fully secure the tower itself, this happened. Oh shit. I got absolutely butchered by a wraith. Apparently they only spawn at night and are one of the most dangerous parts of the swamp biome itself. The death was extremely painful and disheartening, frankly to the point where I actually stopped playing for a couple of days. All the work with the bronze, countless days of looking for copper and tin, all gone in an instant. So I put on my old leather armor and cooked all the meat I had left. I decided to make a wooden shield this time. It seems like maybe that would have helped me last time. I fixed my old raft and set sail. My only goal was to get my items back and to never travel so far without any backup plans. It seems that Valheim was teaching me not only patience, but also planning ahead. I touched land at the end of the lake ocean thingy and ran like the wind back to the place where I died. constantly checking the map in hopes that loot does not despawn after death. And on my way I also learned that shield block can parry an enemy attack, putting them in a vulnerable state and multiplying my attack damage for a short second. Making it to swamps wasn't easy, as it required me to even cross rivers with little stamina, only relying on a couple of rocks to rest and not drown. But after a while I managed to get there, and holy Viking, running through swamps was an actual nightmare. It seems that it always rains here, which gives me the wet debuff. And that pretty much cripples my stamina regen, meaning that running away from things is a big issue here. I also woke up something big in the swamps, but I really didn't even have a second to look before it disappeared into the forest. Don't worry, we will see him again, unfortunately. After making it to the watchtower, I grabbed all my items. The relief was absolutely overwhelming. Everything was there. I ran back to my car and sailed a tiny bit across the river here. I decided that I needed an outpost base, close to the swamps, but also close enough to the Elder's spawn. So after touchdown, I began my little industrialization of the area. Then I flattened the terrain and started building my first hut here. I have no idea how long I will have to stay here, but it might be smart to build with plants in my mind. And yeah, nights were pretty annoying. The biome here is Black Forest, making it technically a Black Forest base camp. And that also means a lot of grey dwarfs in the area. But after a day or two of work, I had an actual hut in the Black Forest. I put down a smelter and mined some tin from the area. I also made sure that the place is full with standing torches, since greys don't really like fire. Although they would probably disagree here. Those torches don't really seem to do very much, you know? Later I realized that burning food on the campfire actually turns it into coal I can use in the smelter. And that means I don't have to grind circling cores for a charcoal kiln here. I can just use burned food, I guess. But later that day I noticed something that worried me a little bit. My base, despite technically being in the Black Forest, had only a small patch of that biome available. Everything around was either swamp or just meadows. And that means that while tin is pretty common, I might have issues finding copper very easily. And copper finding was my next step, of course. So I spent some time walking around here and there, trying to find any deposit, and clearing out an occasional crypt. So instead of mindlessly walking around looking for copper in what is basically glorified meadows, I sailed to a completely different island with an actual Black Forest biome on it. And this biome was at least pretty vast, so finding copper didn't take very long at all. But the constant attacks from grey dwarfs, even when I just needed to mine, were getting really tedious. Really, dude? Just let me mine. Honestly, I just felt like I wasn't progressing fast enough at that point, and was getting worried how much of the game I will actually be able to show you guys. Not only mining was slow and grindy, and the resources scarce, but also I had to deal with constant attacks and annoying skirmishes from greys. Not to mention a couple of deaths that set me back literal days. For those reasons, at that point in time, I didn't really have fun playing Valheim. It felt unfun to mine, to grind items or even fight, and I really had to change that mindset. I made my way home on my carve and brought only about 9 copper ore, which really isn't a lot, but it was enough. And during the night, I smelted all of it. I was finally able to build a forge, and finally repair my broken for the last couple of days copper axe, and I decided that I really needed a portal back home. So, of course, I built one here in the Black Forest base and then ran back all the way to the Meadows base to connect them. And after running for a couple of minutes straight, I found my old raft, so I set sail home very slowly. I somehow made it to my base. And inside in the storage room I built another portal, and now I had an actual connection between my two bases, and I could freely travel between them. I decided that my mindset while playing Valheim was wrong. I wanted to do things too quickly, finish stuff too fast. I was always underprepared and didn't appreciate the slower nature of the game, so I decided to change that and spend a couple of days just enjoying the game, especially building and expanding my Black Forest base. I learned some basic Valheim building techniques from Smithy Survival, really great stuff on his channel, link in the pinned comment as always. So I started from flattening the terrain and built lots of small beams as support for the construction, added stairs and built the floor with a nice looking rotating pattern. Then added some support beams for the walls, and that was it for the day. Somehow it already looks miles better from what I usually build. I had some time to think on my Valheim experience and came to a conclusion that slowing down was a good idea. Instead of speedrunning through the game, I should enjoy as much of it as I can. Next morning I moved the portal inside and started some work on the roof, cutting trees at pretty much industrial rates now. Then I added some half walls to make windows a possibility, and that was it for that day. The hut slowly started taking shape, and it definitely improved the look of this outpost a lot already. Next day I added some finishing touches, and that was it. The Black Forest hut was done, and I am loud and proud from what I've built. And when fixing up some of my old tools, I realized there is new kind of bow I can craft, and somehow I missed it completely. So I gathered the resources necessary and crafted the fine wood bow for the very first time. And that honestly kind of marks the point of no return. I want to kill the Elder and be done with the Black Forest for good. Now with a better mentality and more willing than ever. I had a bow, fire arrows and a ton of free time. So I took the ancient seeds and stepped on the carve and sailed well past the dangerous swamp where I parked my boat last time. This time I set foot in the right place, the Black Forest with the Elder altar. So I ran straight to it, and it looked very ominous. I put the seeds in the fire and all hell broke loose. The Elder has been awakened. The fight itself was pretty straightforward. Shoot fire arrows at a huge wooden man and avoid his main root attack by standing behind a pillar. The only thing I didn't foresee is the skeletons that seem to have a crypt very close to the boss fight arena, and they kept coming. The plan was to never walk up to the Elder and fire as many arrows as possible to finally finish him off without any problems. But the amount of additional non-boss related mobs that were attacking me was actually kind of overwhelming. And despite the fact that at that point the Elder was pretty much dead, I had no stamina buffs, barely any food, and pretty much zero durability on my only bow, which broke during the most crucial part of the fight. At that point I had no idea what to do. I had too little HP to fight him head on in melee, and I had no ranged weapon to fight him at the distance. And then ultimately this happened. I took lethal damage with the boss being at 5% health. That hurts, man. I made my way back, grabbed my items, and quickly came to my boat, where I built a little hut for potential repairs during the fight. But what I didn't realize is that the boss didn't despawn. He was just standing there, completely ignoring me shooting at him. So, to even out the odds from the previous fight, which admittedly I should have won, okay, I put him at half HP for free. And then, just to be fair play, I walked up to him to resume the fight as normal, and not to bug abuse too much. And this time, despite the fight still being pretty hard, and despite a massive amount of skeletons just running at me for no reason, I managed to keep him at a distance, have enough arrows, and enough bow durability to just shoot at him indefinitely. And after a while I managed to get the last shot in. And the Elder died to burn damage. Kind of fitting, in a way, for a wooden man. It was finally over, the second boss defeated, even if slightly cheesed. I picked his trophy up and something called the swamp key. I guess I know where to go next, huh? So I made my way back, repaired all the stuff in my little workshop thingy and sailed back to my base. This time absolutely victorious and with excitement as to what comes next. I know where the swamps are, and I know I have to be prepared. I came back to the spawn to hang the Elder's trophy on the altar, and officially it was done. 2 bosses defeated before the day turned even 50. But the biggest challenges were yet to come, you will see. I came back to Meadows and spent some time cooking food over fire, expanded the storage room even more, and then decided that it is time to make an actual road from the Meadows base to the nearest Black Forest biome, to make it easier to do resource runs with a cart. I don't want a cart adventure like last time. And making the road was actually quite fun. I was using the hoe, making the ground as flat as possible, removing rocks, and making a very crude dam over the river to make it possible for the cart to go to the other side. Then the dam had to be a bit smoother and wider. And after a day of working on it, it was more or less done. Or at least usable enough for me to not care too much. On the other side of the river, alongside my new road, I built a little repair outpost. It just makes the whole thing look a bit more civilized, you know? But apart from that, I also restored one abandoned building, since it was right there next to my ongoing road anyway. I made it into my prep base, where I will sleep or deposit materials if need be from the Black Forest runs. And now, with a road from my Meadows base straight into Black Forest, I am able to mine resources and without worry being able to drive the cart back and forth. And already on my first cart run, I managed to get 34 tin and 78 copper, not counting the countless stone and wood. And carrying it all back to the base was so easy and nice. All this work over the last couple of days paid off. I am now officially not only a Viking, but also a road builder. After coming back, I started smelting all the ore, and decided that in the meantime, I might as well finish up the spike wall around the base. So I spent some time improving the defenses, and now my base looks like an actual wooden medieval fortress. And me, sitting and waiting for the stuff to smelt, I've never felt more safe in my entire life. There is nothing that could possibly disrupt this piece now. A foul smell from the swamps. Draugr and skeletons started spawning all around my Meadows base, but with a wooden shield and a bronze axe, they didn't really stand that much of a chance. After dealing with a couple of them, the raid was already over, and my base safe. Then I could safely come back to my day-to-day. Later I decided that I needed to start some preparation for the next boss already, since this one requires a lot of different hard to get items. So I built a mead kettle, a station that lets you make mead bases. And for the swamp biome, I will need a very specific poison resistance mead. But I also built a fermenter, which is necessary for making actual drinkable meads out of the mead bases crafted at the kettle. For some reason I had no recipes in the kettle, and I had no idea what I'm doing wrong. I even crafted a cauldron to make sure that there is nothing I am missing with the mead making, but no, cauldron is only for cooking meals, so while disappointing, it's still nice to have. Similarly to the kettle, fermenter also wasn't very helpful, so after searching a bit on the internet I realized I probably need some honey. And it just so happens that there is this one beehive I know about since basically the start of the game. So I shot it down with a bow and grabbed a queen bee, which will let me build an actual beehive and farm infinite amounts of honey. And since I had to wait anyway, I decided to grab some stuff that might come in handy while making potions. So I went out for a scavenging run to the Black Forest to pick up as much berries and other stuff as possible. And of course, Black Forest without at least one troll fight is impossible. But this time I actually found a troll cave, their home, I guess. And there it is. And in there, surprise surprise, a gremlin. No, just kidding, it's a troll. But this one did actually kill me, since I mismanaged my stamina like a bit. Not a big deal, it's pretty close to my base. So I came back, grabbed my items, and killed the troll with a sneak bonus bow shot. And at home in the cauldron, I was now able to make some queen's jam, which is pretty good. It actually adds 40 stamina, which is huge, you know, the honey bonus, I guess. And the bees finally produced some honey. And of course, I unlocked all the new recipes for meads, and now in the kettle I was able to make the potion resistance mead, which will come in extremely useful in the swamps. Then I put the mead base in the fermenter, and now I have to wait a bit for it to produce a usable potion. So in the meantime I decided to finally make an actual weapon. I made myself a bronze mace, and then upgraded it to level 2 out of 3. And since I was still making regular runs to Black Forest using my road, I had more than plenty of occasions to test out my new weapon. And oh well, it's extremely effective against skeletons, I guess. So naturally I went and made a couple of crypt runs as well. But this time I was making the rules. I was absolutely carving my way through those poor bony guys. And after a bit, the meat was done. And it makes me very resistant versus poison. Yeah. and that's what I like to hear. And since I had more meat bases to process, I decided to spend this time productively, and finally took care of my garden. I flattened the terrain with a pickaxe and a hoe, and put all my smelting machines there. This was the smithy, officially. And since I completely forgot about it, I finally decided to get myself a boar and tame it. I tricked it into running into a cage and enclosed it. Now all I had to do was force him to love me. So I did what I always do in that situation and gave him some raw mushrooms. And believe it or not, it worked. This is my boar now. Bartholomew. Yeah. And later I added yet another upgrade to get my forge to max level 3. And that lets me upgrade my mace to also level 3. This is the most powerful bronze mace ever made. Just look at this power. But now more mead. I now have a lot of mead, probably more than enough to finally set my foot in the swamps. But I needed one more thing, a bronze pickaxe. Can't mine in the swamps with the antler one. So now, having everything I need, I took the swamp key, better not die with it in my inventory, and teleported back to my black forest base. And here I have to wait the rain out. I mean, it rains in the swamps anyway, so I probably didn't have to, but I forgot. I did spend this time mentally preparing for what's to come though, and after the rain stopped, I set my sail. I decided to park in the same spot as my little repair hut I used during the Elder fight, and repurpose it into an actual base with a portal. This base had a connection to Black Forest, swamps, and was just a short sail away from my main Black Forest base. But speaking of Black Forest bases, the portal connecting this small outpost and the Black Forest base had to be outside, so I decided to build some spike walls around here as well, for defensive purposes. And now it looks way more civilized and safe. But back to my swamp outpost. Exploring swamps proved challenging, but with upgraded gear it was absolutely doable. And parrying a Draugr is actually much simpler than I initially thought, making some fights pretty much trivial. But swamps still had a lot of surprises for me, like those fire dudes. I stayed away from them for the most part, I couldn't risk it yet. But to my amazement, after a minute of walking through swamps, I actually found the altar of the third Forsaken without needing any map markers. A beginner's luck, I guess. This Forsaken is called the Bonemass and is seemingly just as appealing as it sounds. But while walking around, I woke up the same creature that chased me away last time. But this time I took a good look. While running away, I managed to get into one of the old swamp buildings. I opened it with the swamp key, and it turned out it was actually a sunken crypt. It was exactly what I should have been looking for here. This is my key to progression in the swamps. Inside, muddy scrap piles block some of the ways, and they drop anything from withered bones, the item needed for summoning of the Bonemass, to iron scrap. And iron is exactly as good as it sounds right now. So I spent some time here, even having a nice little bonfire to get that rest buff. But we are absolutely not alone in those crypts. I hear mumbling and groaning in the walls. Draugrs are here with me. Disposing of them is not a big deal at this point, but sunken crypt fighting is a new thing for me. And now I had everything I needed, but I still couldn't leave. It was dark, and midnight time in the swamps is a complete no-no, so I had to spend my night in the crypt, alone. Or better yet, not alone. In the morning, I took all the iron I could carry and swam back to my base. Swamps are officially survived. Now I have to exploit them. At my Black Forest base, I smelted my first iron, and a plethora of new recipes popped up. I guess I know what to do now. I upgraded my forge to level 2 by building anvils next to it, and now I could finally work some of the iron I had, so the obvious choice was the iron mace. And with this weapon, I could mace even the Bonemass itself, so I decided I needed yet another small outpost, but this time a bit closer to the Bonemass altar itself. So I beautifully parked, killed a local troll, and started building the most basic hut that can fit a portal inside. And I think I succeeded. This is the hut that will let me kill Bonemass and get to iron a bit easier, since the crypt is basically next to the altar. So since I needed an iron armor, I went back to the crypt, grabbed as much as I could, and came back to put it in the storage on my boat. I repeated that process several times, and when I had enough, I set sail back to Black Forest base, and there, over a day or two, I smelted all the iron I had. After some smithing, I finally got the upgrade that I wanted. Iron armor not only looks cool, but will bring enough protection that I shouldn't get one-shot by the Bonemass guy. But apart from that, I also upgraded my mace to level 2, just for good measure. But armor is not all, so I came back to the meadows and started a little farm. I planted the carrots that grow pretty much everywhere in the Black Forest. Thanks to that, I will be able to unlock some new cooking recipes, giving some real powerful buffs to HP, which are essential to this boss fight. And with the carrots now in the picture, I am able to make deer stew, and combining honey with meat nets me some boar jerky. To top that off, I prepared more jam. Now I am up there with 107 max HP and over 120 points of stamina. I feel that I am more than ready now. Yet again, mental preparation before the fight. Given that this is now almost day 80, this is probably the last boss I will be able to fight. Better make it count. So I left, teleported to my Bonemass fight outpost thingy, and made my way there. I used 10 withered bones from the crypts on the altar and summoned the Bonemass, a slow but hard-hitting blob full of poison. He was spawning a ton of skeletons, but my iron mace was more than obliterating them in a hit or two. But the damage the boss itself deals is massive. Making circles around his altar seemed to work to buy some time at least. After a while, I more or less figured out his attack patterns. We aren't playing Valheim anymore, here this is Elden Ring. And since my poison-resistant mead was always active, I could withstand and pretty much ignore the poison attack. What I can't ignore is his melee attacks. Those hurt really bad. The fight went on for a couple of minutes and it seemed to be in my favor, but I didn't want to mess this up like with the Elder by getting absolutely starved out of resources. So I took it slow where I had to and tried attacking only when I had the opportunity. And then finally... Oh my god, that was actually so huge. My heart is beating so fast. Oh my god, that was actually a bit easier than I thought it's gonna be, but still, basically Dark Souls at this point. I ran back like the wind, even picked up some turnip for sausage making. Those would have been nice to have before the boss fight. And I made it home safely. Somehow I managed to kill the Bonemass first try. I could not believe I was done with these swamps. I came back to Meadows to hang the Bonemass's head on the altar. For the third time I come here and third time victorious. This time preparation and planning paid off. Bonemass is no more. But the next morning I actually came back to the swamps. I had one more grudge to settle. The abomination that chased me off twice has to pay, and it has to pay now. I decided to use a similar strategy as with the Bonemass fight. Let abomination attack, I dodge it, and special mace attack until it no longer walks. Terrain seemed to play a huge factor here, since the big monster couldn't easily get to me most of the time, playing around 3 hitboxes, you know. And there was even a moment where it started running, and both seemed to do pretty much next to nothing to it. After a bit of patience and chasing, I managed to put it to rest, and it did drop some fancy branches. But for now I came back to the meadows. First thing I did was plant the turnips. Then I finally remembered I actually have a tamed boar here. Poor pig was all alone for days now. Never mind, he still loves me. But I did go out to look for a life partner for him. Nice Miss Piggy. First thing I did to catch the lady's attention was punching her right in the face. Then due to her blind anger, I managed to kidnap her into a cage. That never seems to fail to work. And now Bartholomew has his Miss Piggy, and they can live happily ever after. At least she seems to like the mushrooms. I told you guys, mushrooms are the key to love. But now back to items. The funny branches I got from Abomination can be turned into a sleek looking mask. No use for me, since Iron Helmet seems to be much better, but it's nice to have this. And now turnips are all grown up. They were needed for the cauldron upgrade, which to be fair I have nowhere to put. So I started building my own little kitchen area. Since you know I really enjoy building medieval style stuff in every game I play, here is no different. I built a nice cozy shack for cooking. Is it functional? Not really. Does it look nice? Kinda. But it does make the kitchen seem somehow more appealing. Then I hung the spice rack to finally top this off with the cauldron upgrade. And yes, now I can make sausages. I always wanted to make sausages. But now I wanted to do something different. So I came back to the sunken crypt to get more iron, turned it into nails, then chopped some ancient trees from the swamps for ancient bark, and some birches for fine wood. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my very own Viking longship, docked right in the Black Forest base. Since I have nothing else to do anymore, no purpose in life, I will use this bad boy to do an actual Viking style exploration adventure in search of new lands to settle. And the ship itself can hold a ton of items, so I can come in prepared. I went back to the meadows to grab some important items, but then I somehow felt really cold. This was a raid consisting of some sort of ice drakes. I've never seen them before, I have no idea what they do and how to avoid them, and unfortunately they treated Bartholomew and Miss Piggy as target practice. They died as they lived, in mud, but at least tasty. So I teleported back to Black Forest base. I could not fight the drakes. But before I left for an adventure, I left one portal behind, just in case I needed to reconnect to my base once more. I jumped on the ship and set sail for the farthest land I could. After some time I noticed a new icon on my map, something ashore. It looked like some sort of magical barrier. That's exactly what I wanted to see on my adventure. So I went on land to explore, and this seems to be a trader of some sort. She doesn't sell seashells, but she does sell a barber kit. Anyhow, all the gold was left behind in the meadows, so I guess I can't really do much except for resting here for a while. And the next day I set sail once more, but this time I noticed a land of different color, which piqued my interest. It was the biome of plains, which means, just like with the swamps before, I skipped one biome and ended up in a harder one. What could be waiting for me here? I really had no idea, especially that I have never heard of plains before. I guess they weren't a thing back during the launch of the game, so I really have no clue, like, what up. So first thing I did was prepare the terrain, build and connect the portal, and use some sort of wood I brought to build a semi-safe house. Night was approaching and I had no idea what it had in stock for me, especially that I heard constant laughing and giggling around here. I went out to investigate and ended up fighting some goblin looking ass dudes. They didn't seem to have much health, but getting hit with a torch was pretty painful. Those fallings did drop some black metal on death though. No idea how to process this or what I need to do with this, but since I can't teleport with metals, I won't be able to find out yet. Then I walked up to those big cow-like creatures, since the trader had two of those, and to my surprise they were actually pretty aggressive. No idea why I thought they would be passive, but I guess it's too late to ponder now. So I used my portal as an escape route and came back to the meadows. I wanted to assess the damages from the last raid, and pretty much everything seemed to be completely intact, apart from my boars, rest and bacon. But now, hoping that the huge beast despawned, I came back to the plains and got immediately hit for around 40 points of damage. Ouch. I tried running up the hill, but the huge cow followed. Running to the goblins didn't seem to help. I thought they would fight each other and I would make my escape, but it seems they all ganged up on me, making the situation much worse. And then the final blow came. I respawned in my Black Forest base, naked, ashamed. The story of the great Lafgarner II has ended. It's pretty much day 100 now, and I died to a cow. Not sure about that Valhalla ticket anymore, but my time here is coming to an end. I played Valheim for about 50 hours now, built several bases and constructions, defeated 3 bosses in 3 different biomes, and progressed all up to the iron tools and armor. I think this was a good playthrough. Thank you all for watching. If you got to this point in the video, you are amazing. I hope you had fun, because I certainly did playing this amazing game. This was a hell of an experience. Thank you all for watching. Leave a sub, a comment what to play next, and like the video if you had a good time. Bye and hear you later.